The sky above Virex 9 burned like fire as the Galactic Alliance fleet surrounded the planet. Thousands of alien ships hung in orbit, their weapons glowing, ready to strike. The Alliance had gathered every race and every fleet they could. This was meant to be a warning to humanity, a final message to show who truly ruled the stars. But the humans were not the kind to kneel. They had been told before to stay within their small corner of space, yet they always pushed forward, always fought back. Now, as the red clouds cracked open with thunder, humanity was ready to answer once again. The alien commanders watched from their flagships, their faces filled with confidence. They had fought humans before and barely survived, but this time they believed they were prepared. The Alliance had planned every move, every possible escape route, every strike point. Still, a sense of unease filled the command decks. The humans were unpredictable, always doing what no one expected. That fear grew stronger when their scanners picked up something strange, a signal deep within the chaos of space. It was short, encrypted, and impossible to decode. Before anyone could react, the stars shifted. From the darkness of hyperspace, a dozen small black ships appeared. They were fast, quiet, and carried no identification codes. They moved like shadows, slipping through the Alliance's defenses before alarms could sound. In seconds, they broke through the outer blockade, dodging fire with impossible precision. The alien commanders shouted orders, their voices sharp with panic. Unknown crafts approaching. Intercept! But it was too late. The mysterious ships opened fire, and a chain of explosions tore across the orbiting defense grid. Bright bursts of light painted the darkness, each one marking another destroyed station. The fleet's proud formation broke apart in confusion as the unknown attackers danced between them like ghosts. Admiral Karun, a scaled Zorath veteran, stared at the screen in disbelief. His mouth trembled as he realized the truth. "They're not regular troops," he said quietly. "There's something else." On the human command ship Iron Resolve, Captain Mara Vance stood watching the chaos with a calm face. She was a legend among her people, known for her fierce mind and unshakable courage. Her ship had been the first to enter the system, and now she was leading humanity's counterstrike. As she looked at the burning sky, a small smile touched her lips. "Special Forces," she said under her breath. "Let's remind them why they fear us." Her voice echoed across the bridge as her crew prepared for battle. The black ships that had entered the system were not ordinary. They were human, carrying an elite unit so secret that most of humanity had only heard whispers about them. The Galactic Alliance, already terrified of Earth's regular infantry, had no idea what was coming. Below, on Virex 9, the alien troops watched the sky as debris began to fall. What had started as an invasion had turned into chaos. Flames lit the horizon as wreckage rained down, shaking the ground. Somewhere in the smoke, something moved. Something fast, silent, and human. The nightmare had begun. What the Alliance didn't know was that this battle would not just be another war. It would become a legend, the moment the galaxy learned that the ordinary human soldiers they already feared were only the beginning, and the true monsters were still on their way. High above the burning planet, the 12 black ships glided through the smoke of war, carrying the deadliest warriors humanity had ever created. Inside those ships were 72 humans, each one trained beyond imagination. They were called the Spectres, and their name alone brought unease even among their own kind. They were not soldiers like the rest of the human army. They were something far more dangerous, ghosts of Earth's darkest wars. These were the ones sent when missions were impossible, when others had already failed. Every Spectre had fought through nightmares and survived. Now, they were being sent to break the Galactic Alliance's hold on Virex 9 by doing what they did best, slipping behind enemy lines and turning order into chaos. Their leader, a calm but ruthless man known by his call sign Rook, stood at the center of the cabin as the ship shuddered through the atmosphere. Around him, his squad checked their gear in silence. No one spoke, but everyone knew what was at stake. Their mission was simple in words, but deadly in action. Infiltrate the enemy's command citadel, destroy the main power core, and break the chain of control linking the Alliance fleet. If they succeeded, humanity could win. If they failed, Earth would burn next. When the ships reached low orbit, the drop pods detached like falling stars. The Spectres plunged through the red clouds, their armor glowing faintly from the heat of re-entry. They hit the ground hard, craters forming beneath them, smoke rising all around. Without hesitation, they moved. Their black armor blended perfectly with the shadows, their steps silent even on the broken streets. The alien defenders, a mix. of insect-like Varn, crystal-bodied Drexians, and serpent-like Zorath, watched their scanners in confusion. There were no signals, no heartbeats, no motion. It was as if the humans had vanished. But then, one by one, their outposts began to fall. At an Alliance bunker near the city wall, a Varn soldier adjusted his helmet, his 4 eyes scanning the fog. "I see nothing," he muttered. Then, before he could move, a knife flashed in the dim light. The soldier fell without a sound. His partner turned, but saw only a shadow slipping away. In minutes, the whole station went dark. The same thing happened across the city. Cameras caught quick blurs, gunfire whispered in the distance, and then silence. Panic spread through the enemy ranks. Rook led his team through the ruins, his eyes fixed on the glowing marker on his visor. "Objectives 2 clicks ahead," he said quietly. "No noise, no mistakes." His squad nodded. Their armor changed color to match the gray dust of the city as they moved forward like spirits in a graveyard. Overhead, the enemy searchlights cut across the smoke-filled sky, but they found nothing. The Spectres were already inside the walls. Meanwhile, high in orbit, Captain Mara Vance watched their progress on her tactical screen. Each blinking dot represented a life she had sent into the jaws of death. Her crew worked silently, knowing that those few humans below were all that stood between victory and extinction. "Godspeed," she whispered. Back on the surface, the Spectres reached the outer edge of the command citadel. Towers of dark metal rose before them, glowing faintly with blue energy lines. Alien guards patrolled the entrance, unaware that death was watching them from the shadows. Rook raised his hand and his team prepared to strike. "We go quiet," he said. "Fast and clean." In perfect silence, the Spectres attacked. Knives, suppressed shots, and flashes of light tore through the guards before any could cry out. Within seconds, the entrance was clear. Rook glanced up at the massive door before them. The mission had truly begun, and as the rest of the galaxy looked on, the nightmare that was the Spectres had stepped out of legend and into war. The sun rose over Virex 9, but its light brought no warmth to the city below. Smoke covered the skyline, and the once beautiful capital was now a field of ash and ruin. The Spectres had moved like a storm through the streets, destroying every defense point that stood in their way. Towers had fallen, gunships had been taken down, and entire battalions had vanished without a trace. The alien soldiers, once proud and confident, now fought in fear, whispering that the humans were not warriors, they were demons wearing armor. At the gates of the massive command citadel, the Drexian commander stood waiting. His crystal-like body shimmered under the dim light, and his voice thundered across the courtyard as he tried to rally his soldiers. "They are only flesh and bone," he shouted. "We are the might of the Alliance. Hold your ground!" His words were brave, but his heart trembled, for he had seen what the Spectres could do. He knew they were coming. Through the haze of smoke, a dark shape appeared, tall, silent, and walking straight through the destruction. It was Rook. His armor was scarred, his rifle steady, his eyes cold with focus. Behind him, the remaining Spectres spread out, moving with the precision of hunters. "You're half right," Rook said, his voice calm as he looked at the Drexian commander. "We're flesh and bone, but that's all we need." Before the alien could respond, the ground exploded beneath his troops. Hidden charges planted earlier went off in a synchronized blast, throwing soldiers into the air. The Spectres rushed forward through fire and smoke, their movements too fast to track. Plasma fire streaked across the courtyard, but every shot missed its mark. The humans were already behind their enemies before the aliens could even aim again. The battle turned into chaos. Rook charged straight at the Drexian commander, who swung a long blade made of glowing energy. Sparks filled the air as the blade hit Rook's gauntlet. The impact was strong enough to send shockwaves through the ground, but Rook held firm. With a twist, he redirected the weapon's energy, forcing it back into the alien's chest. The Drexian's crystal body shattered with a scream, light spilling out like molten glass. Around them, the rest of the Spectres fought with a deadly rhythm, one firing, another advancing, another reloading. Every move was perfect, every second counted. They weren't just soldiers. They were a machine built for war. Inside the citadel, the corridors were dark and humming with alien energy. Blue light pulsed through the walls as if the structure itself were alive. The Spectres planted charges along the power conduits leading to the command core, their every step echoing in the silence. Sweat mixed with blood inside their helmets, but no one slowed down. They knew the mission was almost over. Outside, Explosions shook the sky as the Alliance fleet began their orbital bombardment. Fire fell from the heavens, turning the streets into rivers of molten stone. The ground trembled under their boots. Rook opened his comms. "Command, this is Spectre 1, he said. "Charges are set. We're ready for detonation." Static crackled through the line before Mara's voice came back from orbit. "Copy that. Get clear, Rook. We're holding as long as we can." Rook looked at his team. Tired, wounded, but unbroken. He gave a short nod. "You heard her. Move out." But before they could reach the exit, the bombardment intensified. Entire buildings collapsed as the sky rained fire. The walls of the citadel began to split apart. Rook looked up at the shaking ceiling and realized there was no way out in time. His voice came through the comms one last time, steady and sure. "Command, we're still inside. But the job's done." Mara's voice cracked slightly, but she answered. "Understood. Finish it." Rook closed his eyes for half a second, then pressed the detonator on his wrist. The charges went off at once. A roar like thunder filled the air as the citadel erupted, a wave of energy shooting high into the sky. The explosion shattered the clouds and reached the orbit above, tearing through the Alliance formation. Ships collided, systems failed, and the Great Fleet began to fall apart. The Spectres had done what they came for. The Alliance's grip on Virex 9 was broken, and the legend of human special forces had only just begun. Above the burning world of Virex 9, the stars had turned into a battlefield. The Iron Resolve, the pride of the human fleet, stood at the center of the storm. Captain Mara Vance gripped the edge of the command table as alarms screamed around her, the deck shaking under the force of enemy fire. Outside the viewport, the sky was filled with streaks of light, blue and red beams crossing like lightning as ships exploded one after another. The Galactic Alliance's fleet was massive, spreading across space like a wall of metal, but the humans refused to back down. Every ship in the human line fought with desperate courage, holding their ground even as they were surrounded. Mara's voice cut through the chaos. "Keep the shields forward! Fire everything we've got! We hold this line no matter what!" Her crew moved like a single heartbeat, faces pale but determined. They knew that below them, the Spectres were still fighting to complete their mission. And if they failed to hold the enemy here, all of it would be for nothing. The alien fleet commander, Admiral Karoon, stood on his own bridge, his eyes glowing with anger. "Crush them!" he shouted to his officers. "No mercy for the humans." Thousands of Alliance weapons locked onto the human ships, filling space with a deadly light. But the humans did not run. They met the fire head-on. The Iron Resolve's cannons roared, tearing through enemy shields. Smaller human ships darted between the giants of the Alliance fleet, striking from impossible angles. When their weapons overheated, they rammed enemy vessels. When their engines failed, they used their ships as shields to protect others. Every human pilot knew what this battle meant. It was the line between life and extinction. Down on the planet, Rook and his remaining Spectres fought their way through the ruins of the Citadel, trying to reach an open extraction zone. The ground quaked under the weight of orbital bombardments, each blast sending waves of dust into the air. The team was wounded and exhausted, but they kept moving. "We're not dying here," Rook said, helping one of his men stand. "Not until it's done." They pushed forward, firing at alien drones that swarmed through the streets. The smell of smoke and metal filled their lungs. In the distance, the shattered citadel burned like a sun, its destruction spreading shockwaves across the planet. Rook activated his comms. "Command, this is Spectre 1. We've planted the charges. The core's gone." There was static. Then Mara's voice came through. Calm, strong, but with a hint of sorrow. "Copy that, Spectre 1. You've done enough. Get clear if you can." But Rook looked up at the sky, saw the burning wrecks falling through the clouds, and knew there was no way out. Above him, the human fleet was being torn apart, still fighting even as their ships broke to pieces. "We'll finish it from here," he said quietly. In orbit, the Iron Resolve took another hit. The bridge lights flickered, and half the crew was thrown to the floor. Mara's first officer shouted, "We've lost the forward shields!" Sparks rained from the ceiling, and the hull groaned like a dying beast. Mara steadied herself, her jaw tight. "Divert all power to weapons," she said. "We're not retreating." She turned toward the viewport, watching as Rook's transmission came through one last time. "We don't think," he said, his voice rough but proud. "We know," the words struck her like fire. She nodded once, understanding what it meant. "Detonate the charges," she ordered softly. A second later, the planet below erupted in blinding light. The Citadel's destruction sent a shockwave through the sky, hitting the orbiting fleets with brutal force. Alien formations broke apart as their systems failed. Ships collided and spun out of control. The humans seized the chance, surging forward in one last desperate attack. The Alliance's perfect line was shattered. The tide of battle was turning. On the Iron Resolve, Mara stood tall as the explosions painted her ship in gold and red. Her crew looked to her for orders, but she said nothing for a moment, only watched the chaos outside. In her heart, she knew many would not live to see another dawn. Yet she also knew that this was what humanity did best. Stand when no one else could. Fight when everyone else had fallen. In that moment, as the enemy fleet broke apart and the sky filled with the fire of victory, Captain Mara Vance understood the truth that every alien in the galaxy would soon learn. Humans did not fear death. They only feared giving up. And on this day they had done neither. The void above Virex 9 burned brighter than any sun as the human fleet charged forward through the wreckage of the enemy. Captain Mara Vance stood at the center of the bridge of the Iron Resolve, her face streaked with ash and sweat. Her ship was badly damaged. Half the hull was torn open. Alarms screamed in every direction, and yet the engines roared on. "All ships, full assault!" she shouted. "No formation, just hit them where it hurts." Her voice cut through the fear like a blade. Across the human fleet, every remaining pilot answered with a single word: "Aye." Then the stars erupted into chaos. Human destroyers broke through the drifting debris fields, firing everything they had left. Missiles streaked like meteors, railguns thundered, and enemy ships burst into flames. The Galactic Alliance, once proud and untouchable, now stumbled in confusion. Their chain of command was broken, their communications jammed, their formation in ruins. The humans, bloodied but unbroken, became the hunters. Mara gripped the armrest of her chair as the ship jolted under another impact. Sparks flew across the bridge, filling the air with the smell of burning metal. "Damage report!" she barked. "Main shields gone. Hull integrity at 40%, her crew replied. "Keep firing!" she yelled. Her eyes were cold and fierce as she watched the Iron Resolve cut through the heart of the enemy fleet. Every shot they fired tore holes through ships far larger than their own. Every explosion was a victory, a scream of defiance. Even as their ships broke apart, the humans didn't stop. Some crews, when out of ammunition, rammed straight into enemy vessels, their sacrifice lighting the void with fire. It wasn't strategy anymore. It was fury. Down below, on the surface of Virex 9, Rook and what remained of the Spectres climbed out of the ruins. The world around them was collapsing, the ground shaking from the destruction above. The citadel had been turned into dust, and the air was thick with heat and smoke. Rook's armor was cracked, his helmet visor shattered, and blood ran down his arm. Two of his men helped him stand. "We did it," one of them whispered. Rook looked to the sky where burning wrecks fell like stars and gave a small nod. "Yeah," he said quietly, "but it's not over yet." Above them, the Iron Resolve and the last of the human ships continued to fight, holding the enemy back even as their own systems failed. Mara's ship took a direct hit to its rear engines. The blast threw everyone off their feet, the bridge lights flickering in the dim glow of emergency red. Smoke filled the air. Her first officer turned to her, panic in his eyes. "Captain, we can't hold much longer." Mara steadied herself, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Then we make it count," she said. She turned to the comms officer. "Transmit to every ship, every planet, every station still listening. Send this message." The officer hesitated, his hands shaking. "What message, ma'am?" Mara looked out the viewport at the raging battlefield. "Tell them humanity stands." The message spread through the stars even as her ship was torn apart. Those 3 words reached every human world, every distant colony, every soldier still fighting in the dark corners of space. Humanity stands. It became a call to arms, a promise, and a vow. With her ship heavily damaged and enemy vessels closing in, Mara made her final decision. She looked at her pilot and said, "Plot a collision course with their flagship." The crew understood immediately. No one argued. No one hesitated. The Iron Resolve turned toward the largest enemy ship, its engines burning like the last breath of a dying star. The enemy flagship opened fire, but it was too late. The human ship pushed through the barrage, closing the distance until the enemy vessel filled the entire viewport. Mara stood tall and gave her last command. "For Earth," she whispered. The Iron Resolve struck the alien flagship head-on. The impact ignited both reactors, creating an explosion so bright it turned night into day across the planet below. The shockwave consumed everything: ships, debris, even the clouds of Virex 9's atmosphere. When the light faded, silence followed. The Galactic Alliance fleet was gone, shattered into pieces drifting through the void. Humanity had won, but at a terrible cost. On the ground, Rook watched the burning sky, his heart heavy yet proud. The war was ending, and the galaxy would never forget what it had seen that day. The fire, the courage, and the sacrifice of those who refused to fall. Weeks passed since the great battle of Virex 9, and the once-living world had become a graveyard. The skies were dark with drifting wreckage, and the surface was covered with the broken remains of two mighty fleets. Silence ruled where once there had been thunder. The Galactic Alliance had lost not only its fleet but also its pride. They had fled, leaving behind the ruins of their so-called victory. The humans had won, but few had survived to see the dawn. The stories of that battle began to spread across the stars, stories of fire raining from the heavens, of ordinary soldiers standing against impossible odds, and of the specters, the mysterious warriors who fought like ghosts and vanished into the smoke. Among the scattered debris, rescue ships moved slowly, searching for signs of life. Most found only silence, but deep within the rubble of the shattered citadel, a faint signal pulsed, a single heartbeat among the dead. Beneath layers of twisted metal and stone, Rook lay half-buried, his armor cracked and his body broken. The explosion that had destroyed the citadel had thrown him into darkness, but somehow he had survived. His suit systems flickered weakly, warning of low oxygen and failing power. Each breath hurt, every movement sent waves of pain through his body, but he didn't stop. With trembling hands, he pushed aside a piece of debris and pulled out his comm beacon. Static filled his ears as he tried to activate it. "Mission complete," he whispered, his voice barely audible. The words echoed in the emptiness before the signal was sent into space, traveling through the void toward the nearest human relay. Then his head fell back and everything went quiet again. Far away, the message reached Earth weeks later. In command centers and news networks, people listened in silence to those two broken words. There was no cheering at first, only tears. They knew what it meant. The Spectres had done their duty, and few, if any, had lived to tell their story. But even in death, they had given humanity something greater than victory. They had given it hope. Across colonies, people began to repeat Rook's final words, whispering them as a symbol of strength. Statues were built in their honor, tall figures of faceless soldiers standing watch over every human capital. The name Spectre became a legend, spoken with both pride and fear. In the Galactic Alliance, things were no different. The Battle of Virex 9 became a wound in their history, one they could never forget. Commanders spoke of it in hushed tones, soldiers refused to talk about it, and new recruits were warned never to underestimate humanity. The aliens had once feared human infantry. Now they had nightmares of the special forces who had destroyed an entire armada with only 72 soldiers. Across the galaxy, the words human and spectre became the same as unstoppable. Some even whispered that Rook and his team had not died at all, that they still moved in the shadows, watching and waiting, ready to strike again if humanity was ever threatened. On the edge of Virex 9, a single beacon continued to blink through the darkness. The planet was silent, the fires long gone, yet that signal kept pulsing like a heartbeat. A rescue ship from Earth finally landed weeks later, its lights sweeping across the ruins. Inside the broken citadel, search teams found Rook's armor buried under tons of rubble. His vitals were faint but still there. When they lifted him onto the stretcher, his lips moved slightly, and he whispered something the medic barely heard. "Did we win?" The medic smiled softly through tears and said, "Yeah, we did." When Rook finally opened his eyes days later, he was in a medical bay aboard a human ship. Outside his window, the stars shimmered like cold fire. The war was over, but its memory would never fade. He stared into the endless void and thought of the ones who didn't make it. "Rest easy," he said quietly. "We finished what we started." And with that, he closed his eyes again, letting the hum of the ship carry him into sleep. The galaxy had learned a truth it would never forget, that humans might fall, they might bleed, but they would always rise again. Because where others saw death, humanity saw only another chance to fight, and as long as even one of them still breathed, the darkness of the universe would never truly win.